Chapter 10. Shooting, Day 5.
Willy-nilly?
Day 5 was lightly scheduled, and after the radio fiasco, we needed it. Only one scene was to be shot, a short dialogue scene at a bowling alley starring JR and Hana. We got up early to beat the rush hour, but still slogged through traffic to reach the location, of which I will again not name because I'm about to get real. John Hunt debated with the GPS, and we ended up in some kind of industrial park. Still, we arrived on time. The quotes will soon be apparent. Let's backtrack. What was scripted was simple. Mark and Carrie have lunch at some kind of snack bar or restaurant or outside table or even park bench. It didn't really matter, but in pre-production we just needed a location, and preferably something visually dynamic. This particular location was suggested by Geoff, who remembered it having a nostalgic game/arcade room. When we walked in, that game room was under heavy renovation, with loud vacuums and drilling. So we had a choice of either the first floor, which had white, ugly, small alleys and no lunch tables, or the second floor, which had a lot more color and a few pool tables. But it was the floor with the loud renovations. I wished that choosing the space to shoot was our only problem. I went to the front counter and mentioned that I spoke to Alex, let's just call him Alex, and he said we could shoot here on this date. So here we were. The front desk guy smiled and told me I was lucky that Alex was even here today, but he happens to know that the owner, who is not Alex, had not approved us. Alex was a gigantic, Solomon Grundy-looking fellow, but very kind. He was nervous, insisting that he had asked us to visit the location first, and that he would approve it then, but I don't remember it that way. He said we have an hour until the owner, Scrooge, let's just call him Scrooge, gets there. Whoever this owner was, he seemed to strike fear in the heart of Alex, and maybe some light rebellion. I opted to not ask for a location release, and I tried to shoot it in an hour. Without the game room, the location was a run-of-the-mill bowling alley, the kind you find in any town, like the ones minutes from my house, for instance. Instead, I had driven an hour and a half north to get here. Kyle, Bonica, and Geoff showed up at once, and Kyle ran power to his elemental kit and tried to battle against the dumpy shadows of the location. We started rolling the scene, and the location was just utterly empty, which looked stupid. I decided to get close-ups first, and then if time was permitting, we could ask them to open the bowling lanes, and maybe someone like John Hunt could bowl in the background. Shooting the rows of tables, we needed someone at one of the other tables, so Nina and I sat in as extras for a take, until it looked way too much like Noah should come over and say hi. So Bonica took my place, acting as an extra for the third or fourth time in the movie. Nina was racking them up too. I should do a supercut of all the times Nina has been in the background of all our films. We rolled on what could have been the last shot of the day, but I was still hoping for those bowling background shots, and maybe a little extra coverage. But as we rolled, it was on a medium of John Ryan. A grumpy old Scrooge walked up to us, but waited as we finished the take. He stepped in. "Excuse me, who's in charge?" "I am." "Come here." We walked 10 feet away from the crew. None of this was approved. Well, I'm sorry there was that misunderstanding. I actually called ahead and thought, no, you didn't. You didn't do this right. I get people coming in here asking to shoot their little movies all the time. I eventually said, look, you want to shoot here, you got to pay $200. His snide tone threw me into indignance. And perhaps hastily, I responded, "I'll give you $200, whatever." "Oh yeah? Okay, go over there. That man will ring you up." I expected him to say, "No, don't worry about it. You're already here. Just give us better notice in the future." But he was that level of mean, happy to yank $200 from any young person trying to just make a little art. I promise you, we were 7 people huddled around a table at an empty bowling alley on a weekday at 9 a.m. We were in no way a problem. So some guy rang me up for $200. The receipt, of course, didn't describe what it was for, just one $200 item. I started shouting over to the crew, "Guys, we just rented the entire space for $200. Let's shoot whatever we want, and let's use the arcade games and just have a good time. Sir, please turn on bowling lanes 1 through 10. The guy turned on the lanes. I walked by Nina. "Hey, for that money, let's definitely get a location release. He better sign one after all this." I wanted something for my money, and for some reason that manifested in shooting an unnecessary amount of footage of John Hunt bowling. It only took another few minutes to finish the primary shoot, so I started shouting direction at the bowling John. "Turn away and raise your arms in victory. Do a little dance." Meanwhile, Nina politely and sweetly approached Scrooge, asking him to please sign this release allowing us to use the location in our film. He cut her off. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, slow down, little girl. I can't just sign this. You obviously don't know anything about business or agreements." Nina tried to explain what each segment meant, but this malcontent just limped away to his awkward cedar closet of an office, presumably to rip up our release. After some time, he came out and spoke to Nina. "I can't sign this, little girl. It's not specific enough. It doesn't tell us what you did here." Well, what could we add to it? I won't sign anything on this paper. Okay, then this whole shoot and the payment you received are useless because we can't submit to festivals or screen the film without your approval. I'll draw up something myself that I'll sign. That was the last time we saw that unpleasant curmudgeon. Nina was fuming from the little girl business and socially shut down. Hannah and Kyle went downstairs to play some air hockey, and I found Alex to at least thank him for trying. He was on the first floor, which was now populated by dozens of bowling senior citizens. Well, thanks anyway. We're out of here. At least you can leave. I've got to stay here with him. A depressing notion. This was an arcade and bowling alley. It wasn't a loan office or a prison. It was supposed to be a place of joy. And this sad little king of his sad little hill was just browbeating anyone who had to interact with him. Maybe it's time for a new job. Yeah, you bet. That's what I've been after all summer. I've been here for too many years. I collected the frolicking Hannah and Kyle, who left on the tee with the other Bostonians. To my astonishment and gratitude, Hannah headed back for a day of work. It was very nice of her, considering the amount of work email I had piling up. She was able to chop through a lot of that for me. JR, John Hunt, Nina, and I went to a Bertucci's in the Silver City Galleria Mall off Route 24 in Massachusetts, where we cheered up and debriefed about Scrooge. With Halloween approaching, Halloween props and costume stores were open in the mall, so we gleefully perused those and then gazed upon the suffering shopping center. The four of us popped into some kind of a fun center, which was a huge room filled with slides and playsets, but sad and vacant, except for one boy and one father. It was a school day. We theorized about the divorce that likely caused that situation. At home, we recorded the Day 5 podcast, memorializing the incident of Lord Bitterness. We spent the rest of the day recovering and preparing for the next day. Day 6 would include all scenes that take place in Mark's apartment, then the supermarket pharmacy stuff, then a number of scenes in Mark's rehearsal space with his band. The apartment would be shot at Jeff's friend Keith's house in Malden. The supermarket would be the butchery in Brighton, and the rehearsal space would be Johnny Northrup's recording area in Charlestown. It was going to be a long day, perhaps the longest of the shoot, but on paper, fairly controlled and straightforward.